Coming up, what an excellent day for shaking beds. Well, howdy, folks, and welcome to Minute 45 of the Exorcist Minute, a show where we endeavor to examine, extrapolate, and excavate the Exorcist minute by terrifying minute. My name is Lester Ryan Clark.
And I'm Kynan Diaz.
And we'll be your holy guides on this journey through what some have called the scariest movie of all time. Okay, so our minute starts with Chris walking down the hall.
And it ends with Father Dyer walking down a hall.
Yes, it's an excellent day for hallways, apparently. But actually, before we rejoin Chris upstairs, I had promised we would talk a little bit about another character at the party who features a little bit more in the book and who has an interesting scene which occurs right about here. So in the book, after Regan is put to bed for the second time, the party's still going on, though in hushed tones. And then people start to leave out of an unspoken sense of discomfort. And then Chris has an interesting interaction with our psychic, Mary Jo Perrin, at the door. So let's have a listen. A reading from the Book of Blatty. The last to leave were Mary Jo Perrin and her son. Chris held them at the door with idle chatter. She had a feeling that Mary Jo had something on her mind, but was holding it back. To delay her departure, Chris asked her opinion on Regan's continued use of the Ouija board and her Captain Howdy fixation. "Do you think there's any harm in it?" she asked. Expecting an airily perfunctory dismissal, Chris was surprised when Miss Perrin frowned and looked down at the doorstep. She seemed to be thinking, and still in this posture she stepped outside and joined her son, who was waiting on the stoop. When at last she lifted her head, her eyes were in shadow. "I would take it away from her," she said quietly. She handed ignition keys to her son. "Bobby, start up the motor," she instructed. "It's cold." He took the keys, told Chris that he'd loved her in all her films, and then walked shyly away toward an old, battered Mustang parked down the street. Mrs. Perrin's eyes were still in shadow. "I don't know what you think of me," she said, speaking slowly. "Many people associate me with spiritualism, but that's wrong. Yes, I think I have a gift," she continued quietly. "But it isn't occult. In fact, to me it seems natural, perfectly natural. Being a Catholic, I believe that we all have a foot in two worlds. The one that we are conscious of is time. But now and then, a freak like me gets a flash from the other foot, and that one, I think, is in eternity. Well, eternity has no time. There the future is present. So, now and again, when I feel the other foot, I believe that I get to see the future. Who knows? Maybe not. Maybe it's all a coincidence," she shrugged. "But I think I do. And if that's so, why, I still say it's natural, you see. But now, the occult," she paused, picking words. "The occult is something different. I've stayed away from that. I think dabbling with that can be dangerous, and that includes fooling around with the Ouija board." Until now, Chris had thought her a woman of eminent sense, and yet something in her manner now was deeply disturbing. She felt a creeping foreboding that she tried to dispel. "Oh, come on, Mary Jo," Chris smiled. "Don't you know how these Ouija boards work? It isn't anything at all but a person's subconscious, that's all." "Yes, perhaps," she answered quietly. "Perhaps. It could all be suggestion. But in story after story that I've heard about seances, Ouija boards, all of that, they always seem to point to the opening of a door of some sort. Oh, not the spirit world, perhaps. You don't believe that. Perhaps then a door in what you call the subconscious. I don't know. All I know is that things seem to happen. And, my dear, there are lunatic asylums all over the world filled with people who have dabbled in the occult." "Are you kidding?" There was a momentary silence. Then again, the soft voice began droning out of darkness. "There was a family in Bavaria, Chris, in 1921. I don't remember the name, but they were a family of 11. You could check it in the newspapers, I suppose. Just a short time following an attempt at a seance, they went out of their minds. All of them. All 11. They went on a burning spree in their house, and when they'd finished with the furniture, they started on the 3-month-old baby of one of the younger daughters. And that was when the neighbors broke in and stopped them. The entire family," she ended, "was put in an asylum." "Oh, boy," breathed Chris, as she thought of Captain Howdy. He had now assumed a menacing coloration. Mental illness. Was that it? Something. I knew I should take her to see a psychiatrist. "Oh, for heaven's sake," said Mrs. Perrin, stepping into the light. "You never mind about me. You just listen to your doctor. There was attempted reassurance in her voice that was not convincing. I'm great at the future, Miss Perrin smiled. But in the present, I'm absolutely helpless. She was fumbling in her purse. Now then, where are my glasses? There, you see, I've mislaid them. Oh, here they are, right there. She had found them in a pocket of her coat. Lovely home, she remarked as she put on the glasses and glanced up at the upper facade of the house. Gives a feeling of warmth. God almighty, I'm relieved. For a second there, I thought you were going to tell me it's haunted. Mrs. Perrin glanced down at her. Why would I tell you a thing like that? Chris was thinking of a friend, a noted actress in Beverly Hills, who had sold her home because of her insistence that it was inhabited by a poltergeist. I don't know, she grinned wanly. On account of who you are, I guess. I was kidding. It's a very fine house, Mrs. Perrin reassured her in an even tone. I've been here before, you know, many times. Have you really? Yes, an admiral had it, a friend of mine. I get a letter from him now and then. They've shipped him off to sea again, poor dear. I don't know if it's really him that I miss or this house. She smiled. But then maybe you'll invite me back. Mary Jo, I'd love to have you back. I mean it. You're a fascinating person. Well, at least I'm the nerviest person you know. Oh, come on. Listen, call me, please. Will you call me next week? Yes. I would like to hear how your daughter's coming on. Got the number? Yes, at home in my book. What was off? Wondered Chris. There was something in her tone that was slightly off-center. Well, good night, said Mrs. Perrin, and thanks again for a marvelous evening. And before Chris could answer her, she was walking rapidly down the street. For a moment, Chris watched her, and then closed the front door. A heavy lassitude overcame her. Quite a night, she thought. Some night. Some night. So yeah, Mrs. Perrin seems to know what's up.
She's a very interesting character. You can kind of see how she functions in a book very well because the book has more time to go into these other thematic, explorations, and how a movie might not work, right? Because it sort of slows it down.
Yes. And I would actually go so far as to say I kind of like that we only have one set of opposing mystical forces in this movie.
Right. Oh, good. I'm glad you said that because that's sort of how movies work. I don't want to be so reductive, but mm-hmm. We have binary oppositions, is how some film scholars like to put it. That's what film is made for. It's this or it's that. It's not. Yeah. There are exceptions, obviously, where themes are triangulated, etc. But for the most part, it's like, work or family. You have to pick. Which one are you going to pick? Your work or your family? Work or Christmas? Which one do you like, right?
You can either be married to your job or you can
be married to Matthew McConaughey.
But yeah, folks, this is going to come out again a little bit later, when we get to the supposed name of this demon. But I don't know. I just think it's so much cleaner that we have like one set of good guys and one set of bad guys that know each other and that are like kind of like I don't know, how would you say, like they're paired together. They're yin and yang. They're eternal rivals, right? Right. The fact that Mary Jo is also like, hey, I know about this thing, coming in there and be like as if she could I don't know, like help in some way. It just kind of it like reduces the, I guess, the coolness of like our like mystical priests,
Right. Again, in the book that might work very, very well, right? And geez, these are interesting ideas she's bringing up in your reading that you have, that she is a spiritualist, and so he said that. So I was making all sorts of suppositions about what that meant for her, and then now in this moment you're like, oh, but I'm a Catholic. Yeah.
Right. It's very, very interesting because as we saw in the reading, she doesn't even, I guess, like to be called a spiritualist.
Right.
And she like even makes a joke about it, like every now and then a freak like me. Mm-hmm. So we get the feeling that she's at least she believes what she's saying. Mm-hmm. Whether or not whatever's going on, she's not one of those stereotypical, flim-flam people, those frauds, those people in the spiritualist movement who were trying to sham everybody out of their money. And
that stuff. We talked about on the Ouija board episode.
Yes, yeah. Yes.
To try to put this into context again, like Blatty is writing this book or thinking about the book heavily in the late 1960s and then writing it in the early 1970s. And this is a time when Americans are rethinking everything about society, right? And a lot of that comes with religion at its core. Right. We will bring this up a little bit later when we get into the really Catholic stuff, but there had been movements within the Catholic Church to reform. So even in Italy, it had gone to the point where the Pope is like, we need to make some changes about how we're doing the Catholic stuff.
Yeah.
And in America, we have the whole youth subculture is like, well, everything is corrupt. Education is corrupt. Getting a job is corrupt. They're trying to sell me deodorant so that I can go work at my job. And the job is just there to support the taxes to pay for the war, to kill brown children in Vietnam. Like everything is all connected together.
Yeah.
And a big part of that was this push against organized religion. We started having people saying things like, I am not religious, I'm spiritual instead, right? And that's self-defined. And we have people who still identify as Christians, but are starting to think a lot about ideas from Buddhism and Hinduism, and thinking about reincarnation, not necessarily converting fully to Hinduism, Buddhism, though some people do, right?
Right.
And at the same time period, we have African Americans who are looking into Islam.
Mm-hmm,
right.
Mm-hmm.
It's this wholesale thing. So some people convert, and then other people just can never quite go back to the full appreciation of the dogma. I don't mean that necessarily in a bad way, but like in the full tenets of Catholicism or Christianity. Right.
Yeah. And I think that is still the way of today. I know lots of Catholics, lots of Christians. I mean, like myself included, where like there's a lot of things about the church that I do not agree with. And I often wonder if it's like, does this mean I'm what do they call it? Like a universalist? Because that's what you were saying. That's what Ellen Burstyn was, right? Like she believes in all of the things.
Right. I don't know how she identifies, right? But she has taken an Arabic Islamic spiritual name. She also believes in things like reincarnation. Again, I don't put words in her mouth, right?
Right.
But she has also said relatively recently that she is a Christian. Right? So I don't know. She's elderly now, so I don't know if she's changed her religious views, but there are a couple of different interviews with her throughout her time where she is expressing a variety of beliefs, and not necessarily expressing them in terms of like, I've converted now. It's more like additive rather than substitution.
Yeah. And personally, I mean, like, I remember growing up and my mom talking about reincarnation like as a possibility, and I was like, but then like on that same day we would go to Catholic mass and be like, oh, okay, and that just kind of like reaffirmed in me. It was like, oh, this is like yeah, nobody knows. So we can just kind of like have this healthy, like, wondering of it, right? And not this fear of like, I don't know, of being wrong and suffering the consequences.
Yeah. But then again, imagine that in 1973, these things were much more on the fringe. And so for Mary Jo to say, like, I'm a freak because I'm a Catholic who also believes in spirits or ghosts or a fifth dimension, right? So the Catholics, they get time, but there's something else. There's a fifth thing. She doesn't say the word fifth dimension, but
right. Interesting. Yeah. So she is in this time. She is a very interesting person because she's got, like she said, she's got one foot in both worlds, right? But like we were saying, I think it's just a little bit cleaner to not have her, as prominent in the story, I think.
For the movie, yeah. Movie's got to move, is what they say.
Movie's got to move, yeah, right. But yeah, let's get back to Chris. So she has just come. So in the movie, this doesn't happen. This exchange with Mary Jo.
Mary Jo has no lines.
Nope, no lines. Right. Do we know if the actor like had lines and they were cut, or did we?
Well, there are lines in the script, not the scene that you're talking about, but she does have lines where she's talking to Burke and or Father Dyer rather. That's her main partner. So in that scene that's in the movie where Chris is on the floor talking to Father Dyer and Mary Jo is there, the script that we have from December of 72 has lines for Mary Jo.
Right. Oh yes, that's the scene where Father Dyer is standing in for the Jesuit dean from the book, right?
Yes,
not our Jesuit dean, but like the
real Jesuit dean.
The real Jesuit dean. Oh my gosh. Ooh, yeah. We got Father Nicola, we got Jesuit Dean. They are in the back room of that bar that we talked about. So we got the Exorcist, we got the Babadook, and they're all sitting in there having their fun, right? We got the Friday the 13th, right? He's not called Jason, he's called the Friday the 13th, right? He's sitting with his hockey mask, and he's and we got Little Child's Play right there.
Right there,
and yep. And then in the back room we have Jesuit Dean, and now we have Father John J. Nicola. Yeah. and they're gonna take over this bar. I think they're gonna overthrow.
They need some diversity in this bar. They need to add the Bride of Frankenstein and the Candyman and the Megan, which is a big movie right now as
well. Right, the Megan.
As we're recording this.
Right. We need the Grudge. We need the Ring.
Yeah. They're all back there.
Yep. And they're just sitting there whispering, just right.
Yeah, it's 2022. Let's get some women monsters in here, and some monsters of color.
Some of the most, and folks, I mean, like, I was waiting to like bring this up, like the most terrifying movie of all time, right? The scariest creature, right? This, this demon that possesses Reagan. I mean, this is played by a woman, right? Actually played by what? Like
three?
At
least three women, yeah.
At least three. I think there might be more. I think I heard Eileen Dietz talk about it on a podcast. She might have said 5.
Right.
Because we have, I think the Spider Walk.
Of course, that's a different person. Absolutely, that's absolutely a different person. Right? Yeah.
So we got Linda Blair, we got Eileen Dietz, we got Mercedes McCambridge, and then we got
the contortionists,
and then maybe one more person. I'm trying to. We'll have to get back to you on that, or if you know, please let us know.
Right.
Yeah, but yeah, all like the pinnacle, guys, like the pinnacle of horror is held by these 3 to 5 women. This character.
Let me pull this up because I like these AFI lists. They used to do AFI's 100 movies, AFI 100 comedies, etc. So there was one that was AFI's 100 heroes and villains. And most of the characters on the list are men. Just that's what people have been making movies about for them.
Right.
Even though and many times in the history of American film, the audience has been majority women. Still, the majority of the characters are men. But when you look at the villains list, let's see, in the top 10 at least, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of them are women.
Interesting.
So if I can go through this here. Number 10, the evil queen from Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs.
Okay. Now, is that including like her other form, like the hag, or is that just
Yes, I would. Yeah, that's both of them, right? That's the same character, yeah. Number 9, Reagan McNeil as possessed by the demon Pazuzu from The Exorcist.
It changed. It's Pazuzu now.
This is the official list, and then in some people's reporting on it, they say Satan.
Okay.
So the AFI, as far as I remember, have always had it correct, but but sometimes it's reported as Satan. Yeah.
Well, even there, like, okay, we'll get to it. We'll get to it.
Number 8, Phyllis Dietrichson from Double Indemnity, which is the film noir from Billy Wilder. Number 7, Alex Forrest from Fatal Attraction. I'm not going to be ignored, Dan. So that is a bunch of them. Number 6, Mr. Potter from It's a Wonderful Life.
Okay, well, yeah, there you go.
I think it's a little high, but that's a very good performance. From someone who really Uncle Billy is the villain.
Yeah.
It's a Wonderful Life because he's the one who loses the money.
Right. I'm trying to remember a Mr. Potter line. It's like, "In a very happy new year in jail."
Right, that's a great performance by Lionel Barrymore. But yeah. I don't know. That one's a little high. For my taste. Number 5, Nurse Ratched from One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. Louise Fletcher just passed away. That's one of my very favorite performances. Number 4, The Wicked Witch of the West from The Wizard of Oz. Yeah. So that's 6 of them. And then the top 3, Darth Vader from The Empire Strikes Back. Okay. Norman Bates from Psycho. And Dr. Hannibal Lecter from The Silence of the Lambs.
Okay.
So yeah. So I mean, there's something about that when we look at like, oh geez, what makes a scary woman, or why would the majority of the very top 10 list of this list be women, right? There's something about it that is like shocking. A really high performer on here. Let me see. Number 17 is Annie Wilkes from Misery.
Oh, yes.
And they talk about she's a nurse, right? And Kathy Bates just looks like a mothering figure. And so when it's the opposite of that, it's like, oh God, both of those things wrong, right?
Yeah. So the juxtaposition,
2 nurses in the top 20, actually.
2 nurses and a little girl, right? Like an innocent, a sweet, innocent little girl, right? Interesting. And I mean, like, I think we talked about this in our Halloween episode where like it kind of fascinated me that the idea, is like, there are things behind each of the monsters that we create. Right. And it's interesting how like they rise and fall in popularity and I guess like scarificity. I don't know, like how scary they are, throughout the ages. But, as we move towards gender equality and as we, try to get rid of sexism as like as difficult a time as we're still having today. It like the idea of like the witch, which is basically we talked about that backronym, like the woman in total control of herself, like a woman with like a woman with power. That's what a witch is.
Property or with agency, or who likes to be left alone.
Right. Who has her own transportation system, who like all of these things, who is a shrewd business person, like all, like that is like at the heart and soul of what a witch is. And honestly, it says more about the era and the people who are scared of witches than, about witches themselves. Because it's like, this is what we want. This is what, nowadays, like this is what we're like moving towards. We want, women to have just as much agency, just as much power, just as much freedom and abilities as men. But like that is the template, that is the blueprint of like a scary witch, is like a woman who has power, right?
Yeah, so 2 witches in the top 10 of this AFI list. And then, the attacks that you see now on women for a lot of the same things that used to get them pressed or hanged or burned at the stake, you see this abuse that women have online, right? Where it's like, hey, girl, I want to take you out on a date, or something much more vulgar than that. But then the woman going, no, thank you. I don't need some guy DMing me. I'm fine. And then the accusations are, you must be a lesbian, right?
Oh, my God.
So it's a lot of the same impulse from men or women who are misogynistic towards other women. But it just plays in a different direction.
Yeah. And as much as we like to believe we've changed, we still have like so much changing to do.
But if we could, before we move out of this, let's just stay here. Like, so number one, Hannibal Lecter as a psychiatrist, right? Like, also thinking about Thomas Harris writing these in the 80s, when psychiatry has become more mainstream. In the 60s, it is like a Woody Allen, Mel Brooks joke about who goes to psychiatry. Right. And now, more yuppie people, more everyday people can afford to go to psychiatry. They're more familiar with it. And then it's like, oh, who is this person that I've let into my brain, right? Who can control me? It's just less funny. And now it's all like, oh, this is happening to me. Right. Norman Bates as this, I think he's gay. Norman Bates is this closeted gay guy. But if you don't think so, like he is this, he has lost his source of income because the highway has moved away. And he's just this rural person who's been left behind by modernization. So like we are scared of him, right? As like, if we take the wrong road, we can end up in this place I don't want to admit is still there. This America that I don't have to deal with anymore, of these poor rural people who
interesting.
Yeah, used to have power, and like, like that's our fear, right? I turn off the road. I'm supposed to just go on the highway to Los Angeles. I turn off the road and I'm in the past with these people with different values than me. Scary.
Folks, you know what we're talking about. If you've ever like been driving through the no man's land between like 2 big cities, and you just make a little turn, or you miss your exit or something like that, and you have to like reroute, like.
Yeah, of course, everyone there is fine, but it's our fear, right?
Yeah. No. I'm not even talking about like towns necessarily. But I'm just talking about like there is just desert in between like our the two cities that we are speaking to each other, like across the wide expanse of just desert, and like it's like space.
I drive from Las Vegas to Los Angeles a lot, and one time I was carpooling my friend who lived in LA. And I'm used to either not stopping at all because I drive so often, or very specifically waiting to pee until I get to Hesperia because there's a super Target there that I know I could rely on the bathroom for. So like there's one place I know I should go to the bathroom. So with my friend, he needed to pee and he says, let's pee here. I'm like, what an adventure. We get to see this new place. And I pulled off and he went and peed or whatever. And then when he came back, we were stuck in sand in the middle of the desert. Like we'd pulled off and we're like, oh no. And we had to I was just thinking like, even though we're, half a mile from the highway, this could be it for us. Yeah. Like we are dead.
You get that. Yeah. No, that is that animal feeling, that gut feeling of like, even when you're like just like in between Vegas and LA, and you're just driving on that, there's no lights or anything like that. Like I've done this before. Nobody do this. But like I've like, there's no other cars on the road. It's completely, there are no street lights because I'm too far, out into the wilderness. And I just like for a split second, I'm like, I wonder what this would look like without any lights at all. And, and I turn off the lights and I'm like, oh my God, like, or like you really, really have to stop and pee. And you just like, you might as well be on the moon.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
How did we get here?
Oh, we're talking about our the fears and what they represent. And,
right. And Bates Motel, that's what it is.
Right.
Yeah.
The Bates Motel is that place. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So yeah, let's get back to the top of this minute. The first few seconds of this minute. So Chris has just come from her daughter's bedroom. If you remember where she tucked her in for the night, we see that she is troubled by everything that has just happened. Remember, this is likely the first instance since Reagan's behavior at the party where she's able to breathe and really think about it. She heads down the hall and to the little landing where we then hear the sound of scrubbing. At least that's what the Amazon subtitles say. A little odd that we've been out in this hallway for a while and we haven't heard it. Maybe by design, maybe Willie was between scrubbings. I don't know. Maybe Friedkin just wanted us to have this moment with Chris more than anything else. But in any case, Chris turns when she hears it, and now we hear it too. We follow her a little ways downstairs, and yes, we see that Willie is downstairs scrubbing the carpet, and we can also see that all the guests have gone home.
Yeah, I like this sort of what we've been doing a lot is revealing parts of the geography of the house that we haven't quite put together for ourselves.
Right.
So to think that we've seen Reagan peeing on that carpet, and we're not really thinking about, well, where does that relate to the bedroom?
Right.
And now we discover that it's essentially directly under Reagan's bedroom where she's peeing.
Right. So all of this stuff is, this happened right under her bedroom.
Which is right under the attic where Captain Howdy is, or the rats. Yeah.
So if we draw, I wonder if anybody has done like a visual, like a mapping out of the McNeil house, and like kind of like pointing out, it's like here are the areas of all the different instances and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's really interesting. It seems like this is a complete house that we could actually go through. Some movie spaces or TV spaces don't work. They're impossible. Right. Like my favorite that I can think of right now is in Darren Aronofsky's Mother. Have you seen that?
No, I haven't.
It's a crazy house, and it's like we see the outside of it, and it's octagonal. But then at the same time, the entire movie is following Jennifer Lawrence. Like, I don't think there are any shots that don't have Jennifer Lawrence in them. Okay. And so there's a lot of wonders that were moving around the house with her. And then some things happen where she's at the kitchen window and she's looking out the kitchen window and she could see the front door as someone's knocking on the front door. But then we have to think, like, well, that doesn't make any sense. If the house is essentially round, octagonal, that's impossible. And then that has a similar plot point where something leaks from the attic to the different floors, the second floor, the first floor, and into the basement. And but then when you start to think about it, like, no, it's actually impossible for those things to have lined up that way. Right. Or have you seen the breakdown people have done of Jerry Seinfeld's apartment?
Oh, no.
How that's an impossible space.
Interesting.
Yeah, I'll have to send that to you. You can Google that about Jerry Seinfeld's apartment, that the hallway doesn't make sense. Like the hallway would bleed into the kitchen. So unless the hallway is some between him and Cosmo Kramer's house, unless that was some kind of weird zigzag Z shape for no reason, it wouldn't work at all. Yeah. Yeah.
The only one I can think of, and they have a podcast for this, guys, Room 237, is actually, isn't that the name of the documentary?
Yes.
That has all these crazy theories.
Almost conspiracy theories is the way they feel like. Right?
Yeah. We're talking about the document. We're not talking about the podcast. The podcast is great. Go check it out. Room 237. They also do Rosemary's Baby. But yeah, and I remember hearing about like all these like these impossible bits of architecture in the Overlook Hotel.
Right. That's clearly designed to be something you couldn't trace. You couldn't plot it out. Right.
Yeah.
It's that movie in The Shining. The space seems to expand or contrast. Right. Contract. In A Streetcar Named Desire, when Elia Kazan is directing that, he starts the house at one size, and then on each subsequent scene, as Blanche is losing her mind, the house gets slightly smaller.
Oh,
yeah. So he's a theater director. He's used to that sort of thing, right? So then, yeah, as the movie goes on, the house gets darker, but also the walls are coming in on her.
Oh, I like that. Yeah. And I remember we talked in previous minutes about Reagan's bedroom specifically seeming, really small and cozy, when Reagan is, like in the beginning of the film, and it just seems so like empty and big, by the end of it. And do we know, like, is this, are we looking at two physical rooms, or is this just like perspective, or like what's going on here?
That's a really good question. So this is a set, which is pretty incredible. Again, like how much we actually see of this house and how by the end of it, we do learn the geography of it. This is a set built on a New York City soundstage. And that doesn't necessarily mean that they build the walls and they stay there. because on a soundstage you can remove the walls, right, that we're not seeing, and then put in move the camera back and put in a longer lens, it's called. So that bathroom scene that I like is probably, they've probably taken the two walls out. There probably isn't,
they would have to. Bathrooms are so tiny.
Right. There's not a toilet there or anything like that. So that looks to me like they are, I don't know, like 7 feet at least away from the edge of the bathtub with the lens they have on there.
Interesting. Wow.
But so, they don't necessarily need to change the actual size of the set, but just pull out walls and then choose where the camera is and what lens to use. With a longer lens, you can have a camera further back. Again, cinematographers, I'm simplifying. But with the longer lens allows you to have the camera further back than a wider lens, which you have to say if you were shooting in a bathroom and the walls weren't movable, use a wider lens, which happens to a lot of student films and beginning filmmakers where they're stuck in one lens and it distorts the film and stretches it out.
Right.
Bathrooms are awful to shoot in. Yeah.
But so back to this house. So like we said, it looks like the guests have all gone home. Although it looks like Chris, Willie is still in her party clothes. It looks like the stereotypical French maid outfit, which is to say it looks like a maid outfit. It's so hard for me to think of a time like there's a reason it's a costume. It's a costume because like it was a real thing at a certain time.
Exactly.
Yeah. Kynan, how common is it for your maid and your butler to be married or like related? Like I'm realizing now there seem to be like quite a lot of stories where they come like as a package deal. Like either they're married or they're related, or I guess in the case of Rocky Horror, they're both.
Right.
But like,
oh wait, wait. you were Riff Raff, I imagine, right?
Oh yes, I was Riff Raff.
You were Riff Raff. So when you were doing your work for Riff Raff in the Rocky Horror Picture Show, how did you deal with that your girlfriend is your sister?
I just didn't think about it because I personally don't even know why it was put in the film or the play at all, because it's a throwaway line by Dr. Frankenfurter and it's never mentioned again.
Well, it's gross. It's shocking. That's
it's gross. It's shocking. But like, and I get it. Like we're supposed to be like, like it's one thing that remains gross and shocking about like those characters to this day.
Right.
Like, I mean, like, because that movie, oh God, and I think there's like 2, maybe 3 Rocky Horror Minutes out there. Yeah. So, but I feel like the shocking elements of that story are not as shocking anymore. Right. Like a lot of what Frankenfurter and the party guests and the inhabitants of that house are and do has been, normalized to the point where it's not like, oh my God, look at that, Frank, like Tim Curry's wearing makeup in a dress. Like, no, that's like everybody does that now.
Yeah. Queer culture has won.
Yeah. Except for the incest thing between Riff Raff and Magenta. Like that's the only thing. And also the fact that Dr. Frankenfurter is a villain and he uses people and manipulates. He's
that's what I was going to say. That shifted because I interviewed the local cast of the Rocky Horror Picture Show now, maybe 4 years ago for a class I did on the cult film. I brought them into the class. They were wonderful. So you were in it, I don't know, maybe 10, 15 years ago now. Yeah.
I was in the and I was in the shadow cast, guys. Right. So I was up there in front of the of the screen we would do our little like gag version of the movie as the movie was going.
Right. So I interviewed the current shadow cast who do the Rocky Horror Picture Show and one of the things that
Wait a minute. FFO?
Yeah, Frankie's. I should know what they stand for.
Frankie's favorite obsession.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, I don't know if this is on. I was in the rival team.
I know.
Okay, right. Oh, is that what? Oh, that's what you were. Okay.
Oh no. So they've said that when they started doing it, right now it's a lot of women and non-binary femme people,
right?
And then trans femme people. And they said that when they first started this current iteration, when they first started to do it, the rule was that the only people who could be in drag were men playing women characters because that was what was shocking, right? And they were like, well, that's not that's not fair, right? I mean, like you see historically why that was the deal because it's less shocking for a woman to dress as a man. That's just not it, right? So they're like, that's not. So you're saying that the fun can only be had by less than half of the gender out there, right? So they fought against that, and so now they do whoever. And so again, it's not so much about shockingness; it's more about inclusion, which is not really what it was in the 70s. The Rocky Horror Picture Show is not about inclusion. It was about shocking the hell out of squares and normies.
Right. Yeah.
And then what some people have said to me, not that cast, but other people said that it has shifted, that one of the things that bothers people is that basically Frankenfurter, who is the villain, right, has sex with Brad and Janet without their consent, basically.
Right.
He shows up in their bed pretending to be somebody else, which is rape. I mean, if they hadn't found that out. So like he's intending to rape them, and then they end up consenting, very briefly right before. Right. And like, well, that's not cool. Frankenfurter, not cool. Right.
Not cool. Right.
And when in 1975, that was just plain funny.
Yeah. It's so weird to think about. And the shocking thing was that Frankenfurter was a guy dressing up as a girl. And like, we didn't even like the other thing was like a Looney Tunes mistaken identity, like almost as if he were like wearing a mask or something like that. Right. Like that was the wow. Oh, Kynan, we were gross back then.
Well, you and I weren't alive in 1975, just to to be clear. But yeah, that's exactly the kind of thing that Bugs Bunny would do to Elmer Fudd.
Yeah.
Right. Like, you're trying to shoot me, but let me get this. I'll get you. I will trick you into sleeping with me. I'm Bugs Bunny.
Yeah, there we go. I had, oh God, we're going off the rails. I had do you remember those short films that I did with the mime and everything like that?
Oh yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah. I can't watch the third one anymore.
Oh.
Because the third one introduces like, so I played this mime who was like in love, and he's going after this girl. Actually, I can't watch the first one either. I don't like the first one either, because the first one is a little bit like stalkery and gross. And then the last one is like his twin brother like chases the girl character like through a series of like Scooby-Doo doors, like he's Pete chasing Minnie, to give her like a smooch,
right?
And I'm like, ooh, no. Like that, there was a time when we thought that was like,
yeah, we didn't even think about it. It's so ingrained as like part of the comedy language that we just never thought about what we're actually saying, right? Which is the problem.
Yeah, and I was literally like, oh, I've seen this in Mickey. Like, I'll do this. He's a villain. He'll do that.
Right. But heroes do it too. I mean, in the first Mickey Mouse short called Playin' Crazy.
I just saw that.
Oh, you saw Playin' Crazy? Yeah.
I just it was on TikTok. I was like, oh my God, Mickey, what the fuck?
Mickey tries to kiss Minnie and she clearly says no, and he tries to kiss her anyways. And by the end of it, he gets her, right? He wins the girl. So yeah, that is how we kept reinforcing those ideas over and over and over again. Yeah.
Ugh.
But anyways, let's just get back to Willie and Karl, who are brother and sister and husband and wife, you were saying.
Yes. No. That's not the big secret that Karl is hiding. No.
No, but the reason why I think it wouldn't be uncommon for a maid and a butler to be married is because it's often a class thing, right? So who becomes a maid and who becomes a butler are the lower classes. And so, there you can't, unlike in the movies, the maid isn't going to marry the master of the house, or like, I guess The Sound of Music is based on a true story, but that's the governess marrying the captain. That's not how do you say? That's not a very practical marriage plan, right?
Yeah, that doesn't. The reason it was made into a movie was because it was an unusual occurrence.
Yeah, the captain is supposed to marry the baroness, and the baroness is fucking pissed.
Yeah.
But, I don't know if you know this, but like the idea of the maid, right? We don't think about it a lot. The reason that they're called maids is because they used to be unmarried women. That's who would become maids.
Oh, like maiden.
Yeah.
Maid.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So that's who it used to be, is like, oh, you don't have, you're not going to hire Mrs. Lundegaard to do it. You're going to hire an unmarried woman because no one else would want to.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, so in the book, we get a little bit more insight into Willie and Karl's relationship. They go on several dates, although we never see them. We only hear about them from Willie. And during the time of the story, they're sort of having a little, I don't know if fight is the right word, but let's say like a communication problem. And communication could be better, right? And Chris asks Willie several times how the dates go throughout the story. And the first one, Willie wanted to go see the Beatles, but Karl drags them to an art house film about Mozart because of Karl.
Oh. What would that be? Not Amadeus. That's too early.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, we're like citing, Paul Schofield in Lear later on. So like they're talking about real things, real movies. Right. So I don't know what an art house film in 1970, about Mozart would be.
I only know Amadeus. There must be something else. Do you know Listomania?
No.
Which is about Liszt. That's a fun movie. That is by oh shoot, when you bring up things on the fly, you don't remember everybody. It's starring Roger Daltrey of The Who, and it's directed by the guy who did Tommy with The Who, and his name is something important, Ken Russell. So there we go. So there we go. So Ken Russell. It's Listomania, and so it's about Franz Liszt, and it's Roger Daltrey playing the piano, and he's like this sex symbol, and so it's like shooting Liszt as if it were a Beatles film. And the women in the crowd are going crazy. I don't think they literally throw their panties, but things like that, you know. So that's a really interesting movie. But that's about Liszt, not Mozart. But
right, huh? Yeah. Movies about Liszt. That's an even shorter
Liszt.
Yeah. Some jokes they fly. Some jokes they don't.
But we keep them in anyways.
We keep them in.
We let you decide at the Exorcist Minute.
Yes. This is choose your own adventure. But yeah. So Kynan, how do you think these two met?
Willie and Karl?
Yeah.
Well, geez, let me think. So Willie was probably about 3, and her mother took her into the observation ward and said, "This is your little brother, Karl."
Oh, Jesus. You're not going to let that go. You want them so much to be brother and sister.
Well, since you brought it up, you're the one who brought it up.
They're not riffraff and magenta.
No, you're the only riffraff.
You know, I remember doing the time warp. There were no rats. Oh my God.
No, so how did they meet?
I don't know. I imagine it's very like because it's just like forcing your wife or your girlfriend to go on go to a boring movie, you know, to go see Shakespeare, to go see an art house film about Mozart. I'm like, what grabbed you, Willie? What drew you? What is it about this guy, Karl?
Well, it was like he was the only one in my village who was my age and my class.
Oh, well, there you go. there just weren't a lot of choices.
Right. Everyone was too rich or too poor, and everyone else was married.
Mm-hmm.
There you go. Yeah. That's it. That's how it works in Switzerland in 1930. Switzerland. Yeah.
I just want to imagine Karl flirting and what that would be like. Like, how did he win her over? He's like, your eyes are like an overcast day in Munich.
This is acceptable to me.
I will accept your proposal in the manner which it was given. We're not saying that Germans don't have humor. We're saying that Karl's Swiss.
Right, they're Swiss.
Right. Yeah, they're Swiss. Yeah, but we're saying Karl's humor is somewhat lacking. Yeah. But yeah, he got Willie and good for him and good for Willie. Right. Yeah, good for both of them. Hope they're happy. Later on another date, Chris asks how it went, and we find out that Karl let her go to see the Beatles by herself so that he could go off somewhere else. And that's when Blatty chimes in and says the time was 7:35. And that's supposed to give us a little sliver of doubt, like where was Karl at the time? Because that time is around the time that Burke is found dead.
Oh, wow. Okay, so when Burke is found dead at 7:35 on this night that we're seeing, Willie is here in the movie, so we don't see where Karl is. So in the book, this is while the Beatles are still together, but in the real world, the Beatles have broken up in 1970.
Wait, is this an inconsistency?
In Karl's alibi?
Well, no, this would be Willie's alibi.
I don't know. I'm not sure.
I mean, there's other inconsistencies in Karl's alibi we're going to get to.
Oh, okay.
But this is Willie saying it. Willie was like, he lets me go see the Beatles, by myself.
So she went to see the Beatles in concert?
I guess.
Or a Beatles movie.
I wonder, is there a Beatles movie?
Yeah, there's a Beatles movie after the Beatles broke up called Let It Be, which I believe is 1972.
You know what? That's what she must mean in the book because they're like it's this argument about what movie to go see.
Okay.
And they go from, she wants to go see the Beatles and they go to see this art house film about Mozart. And then later on, he says that he went by himself to see the King Lear movie. So it must be that they went to see a Beatles movie and not the Beatles.
Yeah, Let It Be comes out in 1970, the movie. So that might be what it is because they can go and see that, for a couple years afterwards. Movies used to be in theaters for a while. So it's now 5 months is like the the typical maximum that a movie is in theaters. It keeps shrinking and shrinking. They call it windows in the industry, like the window of time that's in the theaters. But yeah, it used to be that movies could be like The Exorcist. The Exorcist itself was in theaters for over a year.
Yeah, but The Exorcist was special. That was like in and of itself. It was like didn't they keep it in theaters like even like comparatively for that time, like even longer than.
Yes, but movies, yes, The Exorcist and The Godfather and things like that stayed in theaters much longer. But it wouldn't be atypical for a movie to be out over a year at this time period, because they wouldn't open all at once like the way they do now. So that would sort of change with Jaws, where it opened up on 300 screens all in the same weekend.
Oh,
and now let me think. What was the big movie? Like Puss in Boots might have been the last major studio release, as we're talking now, and that would be on almost 4,000, if not more, screens at once on the same day.
Interesting.
Yeah. So sometimes a movie would open in LA and New York and then not get to Washington for several months or maybe half a year afterwards.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So that's shifted since the time of The Exorcist.
Yeah. And nowadays, I mean, we have like movies coming out in theaters, and then on the same day, they'll be like at home. You can open up your laptop and
day and
watch
date.
Them. Yeah.
Yeah. I took my boyfriend to see a Disney movie called Strange World in the theaters, which is pretty good. It's not as bad as a lot of people said. But we got home and opened Disney Plus to watch The Simpsons, and Strange World was there. And I just scrolled past it. So we didn't see we could have stayed home. I knew it was on Disney Plus. I just didn't want to have that conversation. It was because I'd rather see the movie in theaters,
Yeah, of course.
Shot,
yeah. Oh man, I miss the theater experience. I want to go out again. We're still kind of like slowly getting, well, at least me, and I think some other folks too, like still getting used to the idea of like going back out and going to theaters and things like that. And I really want to go see a movie.
Yeah, if Karl lets you.
If Karl lets me, right? Yeah. Maybe he'll let me go see it by myself. And he goes off and murders a man. I mean, no, that's not what he did. Okay. Yeah. And I do find it really interesting that in the book, at least, we're a little uncertain about Karl. From this point on, because of his history with Burke and because of this glaring inconsistency where we don't know where he was. And, he just happened to go off somewhere alone at that time. But, we'll get to that soon enough.
Yeah. The movie, and I'm sure the book is even more so of like a murder mystery, right?
Yeah.
The movie becomes like a murder mystery, kind of, sort of, for a little while. Yes.
And even Blatty has put forth that he wasn't trying to write a horror novel. He was trying to write a supernatural detective story. So I do think that like for a little bit of it, we're supposed to like wonder about Karl.
Right.
We're supposed to be like, maybe he did, have something to do with this. And folks, I know we're spending a lot of this minute talking about Willie and Karl, but that's because their parts have sort of been reduced in the film. And so every chance that I see them on screen, I feel like I got to tell a little bit of their story, but also not give away the big spoiler if you are reading along with us in the book. So I hope I'm doing an okay job of keeping things nice and balanced.
Yes, I'm still afraid to read the book. I'm on page 11 of the book. I've read the Iraq prologue. And so I don't know the secret about Willie and Karl. So,
folks, write in theexorcistminute@gmail.com and cajole and pester my co-host into reading the rest of the book. It's so like cute and funny at points and endearing and it's creepy. Like honestly though, I think just for the writing, I say it's really well written.
And I just want to defend myself that it's not that I'm not a reader. It's just I'm specifically afraid of this book. So since we started doing this podcast, and I said, you know what, Lester, I'm going to read this book for you. I've read Roald Dahl's Matilda. I've read Upton Sinclair's The Jungle. I've read E.B. White's Strunken White's Elements of Style. There's anything I can do to not read The Exorcist. And I'm reading Uncle Tom's Cabin right now. So
wow. Oh my goodness. I'm just going to start sending you like little snippets of the audiobook.
Oh no. Like I used to send pictures of Captain Howdy to my friend Kyle.
Oh really?
Well, I did it like twice. And the first time was I said, hey, I'm going to text you this picture of Captain Howdy, which he didn't know what it was. He didn't know he'd seen the movie, but he wasn't familiar with enough that he knows who Captain Howdy is. So,
right.
So we were on an early version of Skype, and I sent that to him, and then I saw his reaction, going, "Oh my god!" Like so terrified. So I did it one more time because then it was funny, but I thought it was funny. But no, it's not cool to keep doing that. Scare the crap.
Yeah. But yeah, okay. So anyway, we before we can learn any more about Karl and Willie, we are interrupted by a scream from upstairs, from the room we were just in. Chris runs back up the stairs, and we get a brief shot of one of the candles on the wall as it flickers, affected by the force of some unseen malevolent energy.
Just to be clear, it's not a candle. It's an electric candle. It's like a bulb that looks like a candle, right?
Right. This house is a little bit inconsistent with its like real candles and with its fake candles, right? We got real candles like right by the door by the guest book as they're having the party, and then we got like these real candles up on or these light bulb candles.
That's why Mary Jo likes it so much. The admiral who used to live here, he put in all these fake candles and all these real candles with the mixture, like admirals do.
Yep, right. This is typical admiral move right there. Kynan, we talked about this before with the desecration. You know how remember we talked about how we like the idea better of like the desecration of the Virgin Mary statue happening like magically, like organically, right? Like it just like the vicinity, the nearness of the demon is causing like this like aftershock, this ripple effect. Just the fact that he's close by affects the real world environment in these like weird ways, right? Same as like the clock in the Arab curator's office, right, where Father Marin turns and the clock is stopped, right? And we're going to see later on, like during the exorcism scene, like things are breaking, things are cracking, things are like all of this kind of like stuff in the physical realm is being affected by this like power, or this like this struggle. Like you could say like the force of the will of the priests and the will of the demon is like breaking things in the real world, right? And it has but it has no visual shape. We can't see things striking other things, right?
Yeah, I think that's really interesting that's the way, because it's a movie, that's the way that we have to visualize this kind of thing in a horror film, right? Like it's this energy, this force, this spiritual thing that has its foot in two different dimensions. So it has to affect something physical or else we couldn't see it, right? It has to be not just a wind, but it has to affect curtains or leaves or... Precisely,
right? It can't just give you like a feeling of foreboding, because how do you capture that on, like screen? You have to see like this little light bulb flickering or something like that.
There's this great book by Michael Crichton, who I think is an underrated author because he's kind of like Stephen King. He writes so much. So some of them are just not that great, and then some people can focus on that. But Michael Crichton, when Stephen King or Michael Crichton hit it out of the park, they really hit it out of the park, right?
Yes.
So Michael Crichton has this book called Sphere, which is about this thing that lives under the ocean, and scientists go down and get there. And it manifests some of their fears in real monsters, like a sea squid, a giant squid attacks them and that kind of thing. But then one of the characters, their fears are manifested just in this energy. And that's this major point in the movie, how some people's fears are manifested by the sea creatures down there. They're at the bottom of the ocean, like the Marianas Trench. And then one of the characters, their fears are just this unknowable thing out there that you can't see. Fantastic for a book. It just does not make a movie. So some of you might have seen the Barry Levinson movie with Dustin Hoffman, Sharon Stone, and Sam Jackson. This great cast, great director, great cast, but it's just not a film. Right. Yeah. So here, we have Captain Howdy or whoever doing all this stuff, and it means my light bulbs are flicking on and off. Yeah. Oh no.
We got to get something like, and it's like Captain Howdy is like, so, I don't know, like he's at the height of his power. He's so present. He's so like potent right now that like he's literally making the electricity like go wonky. Yeah. I don't know. Like, I would have liked one of the light bulbs to shatter rather than just kind of like flicker on and off. What do you think?
Oh, I don't know. It's like, it's a matter of like timing, right? Like, is this the time for that? I don't know.
Yeah, because we want to ramp it up, right? Yeah,
right.
We don't want to.
And we're just gonna see this terrible thing happening to the daughter, right?
Oh, we don't want to over upstage the
my light bulbs.
My light bulbs. Yeah. Mother, come in here. Wait, hang on. We gotta. Karl, do you have any replacement light bulbs?
If I get a broom or something.
She's just out there like for 5 minutes. Just
no, Willie, don't step on. Get your shoes back on. There's broken glass, Willie.
And Willie's just like, I literally just finished cleaning up the pee. I want to go home. Oh no, wait, no. I think they live there too.
They must live there.
Yeah. All that to say, like, I personally really like this kind of thing, like when the outside environment is affected. And like I said, we're going to see more of it later. This idea that something so big is in the room with you that the spiritual world almost can't contain all of it, and so it's like leaking out into the physical world, right? And we'll see later when two characters are involved in a struggle of will, something, you necessarily can't see, the environment around them is being affected, by that struggle. Right. However, this makes me wonder about what we see in a couple of seconds. So we are with Chris now as she runs to her daughter's door in what I'm sure I've seen 100 times in trailers and TV spots and whatnot. It's almost unmistakable now. Show me a single frame of this with Chris holding up the skirt of her party dress as she runs to the door, her back to us. The image is all over the advertising and the memory and the impact of this film, right? Is this like shot right here? And it happens so quickly. We really got to pause here and take time to examine this one shot. Kynan, am I wrong in getting sort of, I don't know, like Cinderella Disney princess rushing because time has run out vibe? Like I can't think of any reason to feel this other than what she's wearing and how she's running, except also the camera is being very like cinematic. Like this few seconds of her here running to the door, the camera is doing so much in the way that it follows her, as if we're a Disney prince who's chasing her. Like wait, you almost had a good life, your slipper, right? Except we're not chasing her, folks, and she's not running away from anything. She is chasing something else. She is running to the danger. She is not a damsel in distress, or maybe she is, but not in the way that we normally see. She is both a princess and the hero running to save another damsel.
Love it. Yeah, you are not wrong to say that it looks like Cinderella. It does, of course, specifically the Disney Cinderella, right? In that blue dress running down the stairs here. I teach a class on Walt Disney. That's one of my specialties in film history. So I don't want to go too far off on it, but like the impact that those movies had on this filmmaker generation just cannot be overstated. Like those were the most famous, most artful films of the 1930s, right? Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, and then in the 40s there are fewer Disney films, but Pinocchio, Bambi, Dumbo, and then picking it back up with Cinderella after the war. Like these are incredibly impactful films. Like you like the impact of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs is just fundamental to what film history is. But of course, it's not really like horror films, right? They're a completely underlooked at source of inspiration, right? They're seen as like a lesser than type of film. So yeah, so even if you don't have a smoking gun where Friedkin says, I like Disney. He did. Everybody did. Yeah. Everyone was. And like in Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, there were shots that were impossible for them to do with a real camera. So they were way ahead of their time, and they helped invent a film language for the generation of kids who saw that, who then became the filmmakers of the 60s and 70s. Absolutely.
Yeah. I'm thinking specifically of, I mean, not to go off on another tangent here, folks, but like I was thinking back on the one of the first times that we see the hag, right? Like the thing that the Wicked Queen changes into as she visits Snow White's, or I guess the dwarf's home. There's this really, really cool scene where Snow White turns and she gasps, and we don't see what she's seeing, but then all of a sudden the camera goes to the window, and the hag is just kind of like leaning in, and she's looking at Snow White, and once she sees that we're seeing her, she's very still, and she just kind of like slowly smiles, like got him, and it when I first saw that said to me, it's like this movie is telling us that animation doesn't have to be fast-paced and played in a loop, and people doing like flips and back, and jumping jacks, and like lots of like weird kind of like pyrotechnics, aerodynamics, the way that you would see like the silly symphonies and the the Disney shorts, right? Steamboat Mickey and all that.
Steamboat Willie, just so we don't get a correction there. Steamboat Willie,
right? Steamboat Willie, Steamboat Karl, and Steamboat Willie. But like those are kind of like very like fast paced and action packed and everything like that. And like one of the, I guess the contributions of like of Snow White, just this very still menacing scene of you seeing the witch or the hag kind of just like smiling. And I just remember like getting shivers, like, oh.
Yeah, but those movies are pushing the boundaries of what film language is before they could actually be done in a technological sense in live action cameras. And so you look at Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, which is from 1937. It's as sophisticated as any film from the late 50s, and Cinderella, which is maybe second tier Disney. It's not Snow White or Pinocchio or Bambi,
right,
or Fantasia, but it is as modern looking as a 70s film for sure.
Yes.
Yeah, so it's decades ahead of its time. Yeah.
Yeah. And yes, so back to this specific princess, as we open this door into darkness, Chris switches on a light, and it doesn't do much to alleviate the darkness. It's still very dark in there. We'll see in a couple of shots that it's only a single bedside lamp. But what it does here, while we're still framed in the doorway, is it creates a stark line between light and shadow. You see from our position behind Chris, the frame hasn't switched yet. The shot hasn't switched. We're still behind her as she opens the door. We don't see what she's seeing. But we see now that her face is bathed in that light coming from inside the room, while behind her, looming on the door, is her shadow, so crisp and so clear it might be cut from fabric. And I'm thinking about it even as I'm saying this, even as I'm talking about this. This scene right here is telling us there is no more ambiguity. There is no gray. There is no half light. The darkness and the shadows are making themselves known in this scene. They are here in all their strength and all their terrible clarity. The demon is making himself known. And yes, we will still have ambiguity later. That is by design. But in this moment, much like the starkness of the white face in the black void that Regan saw back in the hospital for a split second, this is a smile and a wink. This is a howdy, right? This is Howdy saying, it's like, hey, there might be more wrong with your daughter than you think.
This, if we're thinking about it in screenwriting terms, is a turning point within Act 1. We're still in Act 1 because we haven't
still in Act 1.
Yes, but this is a turning point this might be what screenwriters call the inciting incident, because this is for Chris the moment where we know she's been in a horror movie, but now Chris knows she's in a horror movie, right?
Yes.
Yeah, this exact close up.
This is the supernatural thing that she witnesses, that like she can't say like, oh, my daughter's lying about her bed shaking anymore. She can't say, oh, the noises are this. Oh, this is all, kind of like psychosomatic, like inside the head or anything like that.
Take your Ritalin. Right? Everything will be fine.
Right? She opens the door. She turns on the light. It's like, honey, you didn't take your Ritalin, did you? That's why that bed is shaking.
Right. Once Willie cleans up this glass, I'll get you your Ritalin.
Yeah. Oh my God. But yeah, okay. Like not to diminish the horror of this scene, right? So, and yeah, perhaps to emphasize it, like we say, like Kynan said, we get this shot of Mom's face full on, but for only a few frames, enough for us to register the horror that she feels at what she is seeing. It's so fast, folks, much like the Captain Howdy face. It flashes before our eyes, and we don't really have time for details, but we do get a feeling. Again, we've lingered on these actors' faces before. The camera has forced us to look at them for long periods of time, and we've been rewarded with some amazing performances by these actors. But Ellen Burstyn only needed literally a second, and I timed it on Amazon, literally a second, to share with us and to pass on that terror that she is feeling in this scene. And then we see what she sees. And Kynan, what is she seeing? What are we seeing here?
Oh boy, this bed is shaking, not psychosomatic, not it's jumping up and down. The script says that the bed should be moving back and forth. And then as the filmmakers have interpreted that, what back and forth means is that it is shaking on, every axis it could. Right?
Yeah.
Head to toe, left to right, up and down. It's doing everything it could possibly be doing.
Yeah. There is absolutely no way to think that Regan is doing this. And that's one of the later on, the doctors are saying is like, well, it's like in times of high stress, like she could be like so upset and irritated that she could be like moving the bed on her own as she moves, and like this is after this scene, and Chris looks at this doctor's like, you are a fucking
Do you know how in cartoons when someone gets electrocuted and they shoot across the room?
Yes.
Apparently, from what I've read and heard, is that that does happen to people. You might think, okay, so you think, oh, that's because they get shocked and the power of the electricity shoots them across the room, but it's actually it's a reflex response in the human body. Oh. Yes, that you get attacked by this energy in a way that your body doesn't know what the hell to do with it. So you jump like a rabbit in ways that you wouldn't be able to normally. Your body's just taking control and go blah. You're across the room. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So that jolt is not like the force of the electricity. Right. It's us reacting to it.
Yes.
Interesting.
So that's what Dr. Klein might be saying, right? Like it's some kind of thing that your daughter doesn't have control of her body, and she's But no.
Yeah, no, definitely not. Yeah. So that bed is unmistakably moving on its own. And Chris is there now to witness it. It is jumping. It is bucking up and down to where Reagan is like bouncing on it like a rag doll. Mm-hmm. And we get a brief shot of Chris's POV from the doorway with Reagan's back to us. And then we're suddenly on the other side of the bed on Reagan's level facing her, like almost like Friedkin is again putting us in the position of a concerned parent. Like we're running to the bedside. It's like, honey, what's wrong, right? And in this shot, you can see even more clearly just how she is flying off that bed. I almost wondered if this maybe wasn't Linda Blair. I thought like maybe this could be Eileen Dietz, like our first, aside from the Captain Howdy, like our first like stunt performance by Eileen Dietz. But I paused, and no, it's definitely Linda. But then, oh my God, I kind of wish I hadn't paused because she does not look at all happy with what's going on here. And we did a little bit of research just to confirm right before the recording of this, but neither of us think that this is one of the injury scenes, right?
Right. Yeah. So there is another bed scene. So I wanted to double check, but there's another bed scene that is even more extreme than this one that required Linda Blair to be on a harness and that she got injured on.
Right. Exactly. But that's not this one.
That's not this one. However, this scene apparently is shot after another one in which Ellen Burstyn was injured, and this time permanently. She still to this day has permanent injury to her spine. So Ellen Burstyn, in a couple of shots from now, will jump on the bed to try to help Linda Blair's character out. And there's been some reporting from Ellen Burstyn that when she was doing this, it was aggravating her injury from earlier.
Yes. So that instance has not happened yet in the film, where the scene in which Ellen Burstyn like injures her back for real. But so I guess this specific scene was shot out of order at like after that.
That's
scene?
From what I understand. Yes.
Yeah. So she has the actor has already injured her back. Well, no, she has injured her back. No. Friedkin has injured her back. And so now she's being forced to do this scene with a bad back. So very unfortunate there.
So they do build 3 different beds, from what I also read, for different levels of special effects. So, there might be 4 beds, right? Because there's probably a bed that's just regular bed.
A normal bed.
Right.
A bed.
Right. So there's at least 3 beds. I don't know if they would have spent time with one of these special effects beds just to use it for the regular one, but maybe so. So there's at least 3 beds. This trick bed move, another one that's more extreme in which Linda Blair gets injured, and then a third one which is a levitation of the bed.
Right. Yeah. So lots of beds.
Yeah, that also makes it a little bit difficult sometimes when you're reading about different sources and they're talking about the bed scene, because whoever's writing about it is like, this is the bed scene that's important because I'm talking about this or that, right? But there's at least 3 major scenes with Linda Blair's bed,
right? With
Reagan's bed.
This is the lightsaber fight in Star Wars. Great, I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah. No, the bed is such an iconic set piece from this movie. So much so that like when you get those little like Funko Pops or those little action figures, it like Reagan is usually like part of her toy is like the bed. She might even be like the same piece of plastic, like welded into the bed. Right. But now compared to the other scene where she does get injured, I guess this one is a little bit safer. This stunt that's happening right now. I mean, she's not strapped into anything, but I just keep thinking like one wrong bump. Right. And she goes flying off the bed and hits the floor, or like her head or her neck comes down when the bed is going up, and then just crack.
Yeah. It sounds unfortunately that the thing that injured Linda Blair in the next bed scene is the safety harness. Right. So that's unfortunate. I mean, I'm safety on set really bothers me when things go wrong, but yeah, that was specifically misplaced safety equipment. Or I would say, well, we'll talk about it when we get there, but it sounds more like it was a misplaced trust in the safety equipment. Because we have this safety harness, we could do whatever the hell we want to this 13-year-old girl.
Right. Yeah. Anyway, okay, so yeah, we cut then to another shot of Mom looking horrified, and the camera does a quick pan from her to Reagan, and now we're at the foot of the bed. Wait, why are we at the foot of the bed? We were at Reagan's side, and again, I can't help but think, like when we were peeking through the banister at the party or hiding deeper in the attic looking at Chris, whose eyes are we looking out of right now as he glances from Mom's terrified face to his own handiwork, this chaos that he has caused with this little girl's bed? It really feels like Captain Howdy is now here, right? In the same room as us. This has not happened yet, right? He's in the same room. He's not hiding behind furniture. He's not watching us from the shadows, right? He is the third presence in this room. And as he glances from Mom to Reagan, we are surprised, and I think he is surprised by Mom entering the frame, jumping on the bed. I don't think he was expecting that. I know, yes, this is a lot of speculation on my part, but I am building an image of our Captain Howdy character here based on the book. And based on my own headcanon, I think he didn't expect Mom to run towards the danger, to immediately dive onto the bed. I think his objective here was to repel, and it didn't work. And that's why in both the book and the movie, we don't get to see what happens next, because I think it just stops. I think he gives up. There's no escalation, or we would have seen it, right? So this is a loss, but it was so flashy and so terrifying, and we jump from here to the next scene so suddenly that we might not notice that the scene ends in an embrace. That's a loss by Captain Howdy. That's a fail. He tried to drive them apart, and he brought them together. And so we don't even get to see the rest of the scene. It's almost like Captain Howdy's like embarrassed. He's like, this scene is boring. Let's watch something else. Nothing to see here.
Right. A mother's love. I mean, his ex-wife Lamashtu would have thrown the baby out the window, right?
Right. Exactly.
Like, you're shaking this, get out this fucking window.
This hunting window.
This is my bed. I'm renting this bed. That's the Lamashtu move.
Right. But Captain Howdy, sorry, we did see it here on the Exorcist Minute, where we make it a point to examine, extrapolate, and excavate this film minute by terrifying minute. We saw it. This is a point to the McNeil family, right? And folks, if you're following along at home, if you're keeping score, if you're watching the film, if you're reading the book, I want you to pay special attention to how our characters react to this demon's antics. It'll be hard because his antics are going to be big and loud and flashy and scary, and perhaps that is by design. Bells and whistles and pyrotechnics, perhaps this is misdirection. So focus on our heroes, focus on how they respond, what they do, and also what they don't do. Because sometimes he's trying to get them to do something, and it doesn't work. Folks, this scene in the book is the very last moment of part 1. Remember, Blatty has broken it up. Part 1 is titled The Beginning, and part 2 is The Edge. And as we get closer to The Edge, folks, I want to let you in on why I decided to make this podcast. We are getting closer. We are edging closer to a final battle between good and evil. But before that final confrontation, all throughout this story, in fact, subtle hints are being planted. Little battles are being fought. And sometimes they're so little and so subtle we don't even notice them. We are edging closer to my thesis statement. Even as we edge closer to the final battle between good and evil, there is a voice that is whispering to us throughout this film, but most of the time it is so small and so quiet that we can't hear it, especially because that other voice is so loud. But listen, watch, pay attention to our heroes, pay attention to that voice, because maybe it's just their collective voice. Maybe it's something that a lot of people miss. I sometimes wonder if Friedkin and even Blatty missed it, because it really is that subtle. But it's the reason I'm doing this podcast, and I'm so glad you guys are coming with me on this journey, and I'm so glad, Kynan, that you're here with me as we go through this thing. Folks, this was accidental. Speaking of that subtle voice, that message, this podcast, this minute, bridges two scenes in which one character is in trouble and another character comes to help. I really think that Friedkin was trying to scare us with the ending of this scene. Watching it the way that we are watching it, however, we're not looking at it scene by scene. We're looking minute by minute. And sometimes that can feel a little janky, like we're not supposed to see the story this way. But it also made me realize, folks, that this minute bridges two scenes in which one character is in trouble and another character comes to save them. That's a peek behind the curtain. That's something that I think we might miss if we're looking at this scene by scene, right? Love and friendship and loyalty are not loud things generally. And so sometimes, just like in real life, we might not notice them, but they're there. So now we cut from the McNeils and we have Father Dyer, friend of Father Karras, walking down a hall in what I thought was Georgetown University. But Kynan, you were saying this is a different place?
So it's actually shot at Fordham, from what I'm seeing, which is you've mentioned in the book already. That's where Karras stays in New York when he goes to visit his mother.
Right. Yes.
So that's not in the film, but. But then we have other information, as you were saying, because we have Father O'Malley, who plays Father Dyer, saying that he screens this film for his students, right?
Yes, or at least he talks about this film. Let's see. Just because I don't want to get anything wrong, let's jump to there and look. Okay, so this is what the X-ray says. This is the Amazon X-ray. And so, folks, if you know something different, please let us know. But it says the scenes showing Father Karras in his room at Georgetown were filmed in Fordham University's freshman residence, Hughes Hall, 4th floor. Hughes was once the site of Fordham Preparatory School. Since there was no elevator at the time, the windows had to be removed in order to accommodate the camera on a crane. Each year, William O'Malley, that's Father Dyer's actor, talks about his experience with the movie after students watch it on the same floor where it was filmed. I'm still confused. So are they shooting at Fordham, but they're pretending that it's Georgetown?
I think so, right? Because because a lot of the movies shot in New York. So when we're doing interiors, we're mostly in New York. Like the McNeil house is a set. So Fordham is in the Bronx. That's where O'Malley was teaching. And then, as you say, when he was still teaching there, years after he made this little pornographic horror film, as he called The Exorcist, he would show it to his students and talk about it there. That's really neat, though, on the same floor that they shot these scenes that he was showing his
That's really cool. I would love to have that experience. That'd be really cool. Yeah. But so as far as we know, the actual physical place is Fordham, and they're pretending now
it's Georgetown.
That it's Georgetown.
Yeah, we've seen exteriors of Georgetown that are really at Georgetown. But the interior here is in New York City.
Yeah.
Movie magic, baby.
Yeah. But then again, like he because they're both teachers at Georgetown.
In the movie.
Like the characters.
Yes.
Yeah. Right. Father Karras and Father Dyer are teachers at Georgetown. Right. Or not teachers, but like they work at Georgetown.
Father Dyer is a teacher at Georgetown. Father Karras is the psychiatrist for the other priests at Georgetown.
Yes. But could this also be right, because like he goes to Fordham University because it's close to his mother
in the book,
and his
not
his
in the
mother
movie,
has just died. Okay. Yeah. So many.
In the movie, in the book, it says that he stays at the dorm at Fordham. That's where he forgets to sign his name properly with his rank on it. But that's where he stays when he's going to go to New York for his mother.
Right.
But that doesn't seem to happen in the movie. In the movie, he just stays with his mother, it seems.
Right. Yeah. That's like he doesn't go anywhere else in New York. Right. Don't got time. You just gotta see mom, and
try not to see Uncle John, Uncle Tito. Shh.
Yeah. Right. Wouldn't it? You know what, Demi? Like, you know what mom would really, really like is, like a trip around the city, right? See the Statue of Liberty, see the bridge, like do all these things, Like maybe that would have been a nice little thing.
It's funny. What we should have done?
Yeah,
your mom died of a broken heart.
We've become Uncle Tito. Like just shit. Like I don't want to shit on Father Karras right now. For he feels bad enough in this scene. Oh my god. Oh God. But yeah. Okay. So the point that I was trying to make here is that, like, isn't it weird? Isn't it like interesting that our last scene ends with something like that is potentially scary. It's like, oh my God, like the bed was shaking, right? But it ends with like one character coming to rescue another character, and it goes right into another character rescuing, like Father Dyer rescuing Father Karras essentially from the depths of his depression.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? Yeah, so I really like that. So we have our friend Father Dyer, friend of Father Karras, walking down a hall. He smiles as he passes by a room in which students are playing poker. Again, another example of communion, right? Of togetherness, friends playing cards. We see that Father Dyer is also carrying a valise or a small bag. He passes what appears to be another student sitting alone in the hallway, smiles at him. That student does not ask him if he could help an old altar boy. That doesn't happen.
Father Dyer, as he's walking down, looks like he's just like cock of the walk, which isn't, not. I realize people might not know that. Just that's not a sexual thing. No. But he's just like
cock, as in the chicken,
as in the rooster. Right? He just looks so happy and so at home here. And like he's like the cool priest. He's got his his coat over his shoulder. He looks in at the kids playing poker. It's not like they'd be like, "Oh no, Father Dyer's here, cheese it," right? They're like, "Oh, he's the cool priest who's walking down." The script says that Father Dyer should be wearing a Snoopy T-shirt.
I think the book says that too.
There's something about that, but yeah, this version of him, he's like the cool, young, hip, neato priest.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like you imagine him to like just do finger guns.
Yeah.
It's like, hey.
See, I did that. We don't see each other when we record. I was doing that while I was describing it. So you can't see me, but I was,
There we go. Exactly that. We're on the same page here, folks. But yeah, no, and he's gonna like elbow a jukebox and it's gonna start playing.
Hey, you catch Snoopy last night?
Yeah. goes into Demi's room and says, "Hey, you know what's not cool? Being depressed." Okay, all right. We get sillier when the movie gets sadder.
That's true.
We?
Yeah.
Yeah, because we're trying to avoid it, folks. We're trying to get away from this. Like,
Damon, I want to tell you about a character who went through a lot of troubles in his own, had a lot of doubts, and had a lot of adversity, but he never got down. And that character was Snoopy.
That was some very good misdirection. I thought you were going to say Jesus.
Oh,
I thought you were.
No, we're off the clock.
Yeah.
Takes off his red sweater and there's this Snoopy T-shirt underneath it. The last thing I want to talk about is Jesus. Like when people want to talk to us about The Exorcist, let's watch The Exorcist. Like, right. God, yeah, we're done for the week.
Yeah, let's not bring work home with us. Come on. They treat it like a job. They clock in, they clock out, right? Instead of a punch card, it's the little it's the little neck thing.
Exactly.
It just goes.
Right. Jesus.
Okay, we've
Jesus is everywhere, but not at 6:00. Right. Jesus is back at the office, man.
Oh my God. All right. At the risk of going down this blasphemous path any further. Funny as it is. Okay. So yeah, folks, that is where our minute ends. Hallways and doors, folks, hallways and doors. Like I said, this minute is a bridge, a hallway, perhaps, between two scenes, so different and yet so similar. Where is Father Dyer going, and what's in that bag? We'll have to wait until the next minute to find out. And folks, we have a new section for you. It's called Housekeeping with Willie and Karl. This is where we talk about any corrections, any mistakes, or even just observations brought to our attention by fans and listeners, and also ones we discovered and want to correct. So if you'll remember, in minute 32, What an Excellent Day for Church, we said that this priest carrying flowers, the one who sees the desecration of the Virgin Mary statue, was Father John J. Nicola. However, our friend at Exorcist Reviews pointed out that while Father John J. Nicola was hired as a technical advisor, and while at the same time Father John J. Nicola also wrote the book Diabolical Possession and Exorcism, the priest in this scene is likely an actor. And I gotta say, folks, when I tried to confirm one way or the other, I ended up confusing myself way more than necessary. No Sherlock Holmes am I. No William F. Kinderman, for that matter, either. But because, folks, the Amazon X-ray and IMDb both say that this guy in the film is John Nicola. Some articles link him to the book he wrote, some articles link him to being a technical advisor to the film, and some have him down as an actor in the film. But nowhere in any of these sources is he listed as doing all three. So, okay, any normal person can see after all this research that they simply miscredited this actor, swapping his name with that of one of the technical advisors. However, my dumb self thought that I had stumbled upon an amazing discovery, that there was not one Father John J. Nicola, who just happened to be a priest and who just so happened to help in the making of The Exorcist, but two, possibly even three. One to serve as the advisor, one to write the book, and the one credited on X-Ray and IMDb. It was an embarrassingly long time before I messaged Kynan and said, "Hey, Kynan, I think this actor's name is wrong." To which he responded, "Yes."
Yeah, so there's not three Father John J. Nicholas.
But wouldn't that be exciting, folks?
We were pulling up the obituary for Father John J. Nicola and comparing him to the picture of the actor in The Exorcist, which they look nothing alike, unfortunately. Right. I was trying very hard to be like, no, they're the same. He just has glasses in one, and it's 30 years apart. But no, they're not the same person, absolutely.
Yeah.
And Father Nicola's book, right, Diabolical Possession and Exorcism, we talked about that on the podcast, and we had said, well, if we could afford a $150 book, we'd buy it. But in that book, apparently it says that he refused to be in the movie.
Yeah. Even though he was, correct me if I'm wrong, Kynan, he was the one who had said, make sure that the demons' cursing and swearing and vulgar behavior was authentic.
Right. But again, it's a book that we are too poor to afford, so we did not read it ourselves, so we're doing it secondhand. But yes, our friend at the Exorcist Reviews says that Father Nicola said explicitly in his book on exorcism that he helped with the making of the movie, but did not want to be an actor.
Yeah. So there you go, folks. Mea culpa, my bad. But do go check out Exorcist Reviews on YouTube and Instagram. They've got some really cool stuff. I was looking at their page the other day, and it's really good. Lots of cool facts and trivia about the book and movie as well. YouTube channel is Exorcist Reviews, and the Instagram is Exorcist_reviews. So check them out. And thank you, friend, for bringing this to our attention. And folks, if you caught anything that we missed or got, or anything that we missed or anything that we got wrong, or you just want to make an observation about something in the film or the book, write us at theexorcistminute@gmail.com. We love hearing from you guys. And now let's just make sure that the attic is clean. Karl, are there any more rats?
No rats.
Okay, thanks, Karl.
And Willie, do you think we got it all?
Yes, I think so.
Thank you, guys. Thank you both. Okay. Now get back to work. No.
We'll send you back to Geneva.
All right. Kynan, are you thinking what I'm thinking?
I think I am, Lester.
Folks, until next time, the power of Snoopy compels you.